The heat is on. At least for today, there is quite an impact. And yes, we are in trouble as a nation, and I'll explain why and how in this video as we explore. Gold and silver are benefiting from this. They're feeling the impact too in a positive way. And this is based off of a video that I recorded a couple of days ago about what Moody's has done. And we're seeing the effects of it play out here today. It is something else. Gold and silver are on the rise today. In fact, let's take a look at the markets and see what they're doing right now. Gold is up 0.87% today, up $27.80. Now, that's probably one of the reasons why gold rose and silver rose when the market opened last night. We covered that on this channel. We do that every Sunday night. We do a market watch. But gold is resting right now at $3,230.60 moments before these markets close. Silver's up 7 cents, so it's not benefiting as much, but it is riding on the coattails to a degree, up $32.45, below that critical $32.50 level. If we could stay above that, we may have a fighting chance at $33 again, but who knows? That's only a 2 percentage point increase, or 0.2% increase here. Platinum and palladium actually did better. They are rebounding. Both those metals now are above $1,000. But, we're going to see more dips, but the fact remains is that no institution that in recent years that has downgraded the United States credit rating has ever moved in the opposite direction. Summit Metals is a channel sponsor. They have great deals on gold and silver, so check them out next time you are in the mood for a purchase or your budget allows. Just put them on your list of websites to check out, summitmetals.com. They are constantly adding new products, but also new services. Yes, indeed. So check them out on their website for details on that. Bloomberg is reporting about how gold has rose as the dollar has tumbled after Moody's rating stripped the U.S. of its last top credit rating due to ballooning debt and deficits. That really does sum it up. In fact, both these metals were up more than this earlier in the day. In fact, the high for gold was at $3,250 was the high before scaling back some of these gains. Silver got up to $32.70 earlier in the day, and the dollar was down more. It is now sitting at 100.35, and that just goes to show you that, with this is bad. We're in trouble, and finally some institutions are, taking notice. Moody's blamed successive administrations and Congress for swelling budget deficits that it said show little sign of abating, and they're really true. That's exactly right. There's concern the situation could get worse, with Republican lawmakers discussing a tax and spending package from U.S. President Donald Trump that critics say would add trillions more to the federal debt over the coming decade. Yes, indeed, for sure. We got to be responsible with our spending. I know that we as private individuals, we need to do that as well. And hence why I'm tapped out right now. I've been saying that in the comment section and even before. And I'm going to explain why the latest delivery came in, and that explains why I'm tapped out. I'll show you that later in the video. You're not going to want to miss it. It's a very interesting gold coin that I got. No longer available now. But nonetheless, stay tuned for that, and I'll talk about it. So gold has experienced swings in recent months. It suffered the biggest weekly loss since November last week on easing geopolitical tensions after a blistering rally that saw it climb above $3,500 an ounce for the first time last month. Gold is still up by more than 1/5 this year, driven by global conflicts, Trump's tariff spree, and inflows to exchange-traded funds. We expect gold to be volatile in the short term as we see a mix of good and bad news headlines, according to Vasu Menon, Managing Director of Investment Strategy at Overseas Chinese Banking Corporation. In the long run, Trump's policies and diversification away from dollar-denominated assets are structural tailwinds for gold that could see it scaling new heights in the coming years, he said. That is possible. But really that's going to be based on what other nations are going to be doing with gold, presumably adding more of it to their coffers, to their central banks, as we've seen on a record pace since 2022. Now, just today, Donald Trump had a discussion with both Vladimir Putin of Russia and Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine to try to get a ceasefire going, or to set the stage for negotiations between the two countries, sparked by a ceasefire. It's going to be a very tough thing, but nonetheless, it was a productive conversation. And that certainly could have been some of the reason why these numbers have pulled back today for gold and silver, is that there's some progress there. And if you think about it, if we're not sending money to Ukraine for weapons, well, that means that we can be a little bit more fiscally responsible here if that war comes to a halt. And we'll see how that plays. But nonetheless, it is an interesting thing. But one thing is for sure, this latest version of the big, beautiful bill that's been sent through the Congress has passed the Budget Committee, but still with not as much spending cuts as should be done. And that's a problem. They're trying, and some of these spending cuts are delayed greatly. That's another problem. We are at a crisis point, I think, in this country with all of the deficit spending. And yes, the debt to GDP ratio will be coming down with this bill. And I know that is one of the things that Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, has been talking about on the Sunday talk shows. But that's still, it's a problem that it keeps rising. And it's obviously has had an effect, as Moody's has sent us to a downgrade. We're no longer AAA across the board or on any metric by any ratings agency, because we have Standard & Poor's, Fitch, and now Moody's that have scaled us back a notch. And even though in the grand scheme of things it doesn't matter because we are the top dog, essentially we have the strongest currency, we've got the strongest economy, but still it's not good because as we are starting to see a concerted effort for de-dollarization. That de-dollarization is something that is very real, and I don't think it's just because of what's going on with regards to the weaponization of the dollar. It is because of the cheapening of the dollar. The dilution of its value has really had a gross and profound effect on the world economy, and it doesn't look like that it's going to be as sustainable as it was 10 years ago when we were still doing this and massive debts and coming off of quantitative easing. And this time, we are still quantitative easing. I just heard a report that the Fed just injected more buying of treasuries. It's not good. So the Federal Reserve is doing bad things with more quantitative easing. I talked about it recently in a video with the amount of money that is being created, the M2 money supply. And this is happening on the back end. All the while, there's all this talk about Doge and everything else on the front end. And but yet, it's just this very frustrating. It's very frustrating because you and I, as taxpayers, we are paying the brunt of it. And if you are in another country, make no mistake, the dollar is the most dominant currency. You're hurting too, because a lot of your currencies are tied to the U.S. dollar in some way. They're traded. It's part of the foreign exchange reserves that the central banks hold outside of assets like gold. So in other words, Canadians, yea, though they hold no gold, they do have dollar-denominated assets and dollars in and of themselves. In fact, that's what they did. They decided to take that route instead of having gold on hand. So it's a big deal. And so we're feeling the impact. Gold and silver are, and even though the trouble that we're facing now, it won't have a direct impact on us, but this downgrade is just another sign that we're in trouble here. And so I hope that the Congress will take note here and work to actually codify some of the Doge cuts more than what they have been doing, and really limit government. Government is just too big. It's overrated anyway. It really is of what it does. I'm hearing all this talk about the tornadoes in Kentucky and everything, and how, oh well, this because of all the cuts and the warning systems. Well, I tell you what, the National Weather Service and the like, and they do is overrated as well. There's other agencies, private agencies, that do a much better job of forecasting weather, and there's other ways you could warn in the private sector. And so my feeling is that people put way too much faith and trust in the government, and we need to look at other areas and look at the private sector, because we the people are the United States of America. And the thing is even in the Constitution, when they talk about gold and silver being actual money, that's just it. We can empower ourselves outside of government by holding on to gold and silver as wealth outside of the system, and embrace it, because it is constitutional. It literally, really is constitutional. And so when you talk about constitutional silver, we usually think of the pre-65 dimes, quarters, and half dollars, and silver dollars. But you know what? This is constitutional money too. Yes, indeed. Any silver and gold is, no matter what's stamped on it. So there you have it. There's your market report, and here's the gold coin I got. It is a Malta from the nation of Malta, and I got this thing from Provident Metals, and the coin looks nice, but the capsule's horrible. It's cloudy, but the coin actually looks really good outside the capsule. I need to find a new capsule for it. The only thing I don't like about this coin is it's a larger diameter, same diameter as a Philharmonic. It's 37 millimeter, which means it's extra thin. But otherwise, I love the design of this. It's got great design elements, and so that's why I got it. Paid a lot more for it because gold was much higher then. In fact, I got it pretty much right near the top of the market. It's just the way it goes. But nonetheless, it's gold, so I'm going to hold on to it. Let me know what your thoughts are about this coin and about the markets today. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.